How's it going, everyone? It's Sam. Is it even realistic, or is it even possible for most people to become a whole coiner? No, it's not. But we'll go through the math on how you can do that here today. I'll explain why it's not realistic for most people to become whole coiners. And we also are going to look at some of the other top news, some really interesting information coming out about Bitcoin. If you don't mind, hit subscribe, turn on the bell notification so you can see future videos just like this. Also, there's going to be a link to Margex underneath the video where you can trade cryptocurrency using leverage. And they are going to do an airdrop campaign starting here in just a few days. So you can go set up your account. You don't need a KYC, meaning you don't have to give out your personal information. It's super easy to set up. It takes 30 seconds. And then you can deposit and start trading within a few minutes. Also, there's going to be a link to CoinW as well. They're doing a deposit bonus right now where you can actually get some free USDT just for depositing. It goes up to 1,000 USDT. So if you want to check that link out, it's underneath the Margex link. Now, as you can see, today we're right at the same price it seems like we've been for a while, right around 67, 68, 69K. Okay, we've been trending in this general direction. And I think we will have a move very soon. I think we're bound to have a move pretty quickly. And pretty quickly, I mean the next couple weeks. It's got me thinking, though. After we start moving up, a lot of people are going to come to crypto and start wondering about what their goal should be. They're going to hear about being a whole coiner, getting one full Bitcoin. And they'll think, okay, that's a good goal. Is it possible, though? Is it possible for most people to become whole coiners? No. Let me show you some of the numbers and show you how you can get there. But keep in mind, right now, the price of one Bitcoin is nearing $70,000. A year ago, the price was right around $28,000. You timed it at the bottom of the bear market, $16,000. Then it was the price of a used car. Now it's the price of a nice new car. Okay, just get this in your head. Most people will never become whole coiners. Keep that in mind. Like, the fact is, with Bitcoin around $70,000, you have to make a lot of money, especially if you think Bitcoin's going to go up. You have to make a lot of money to be able to put $70,000 into what is considered a risk-on asset. I'll talk more about that and why it's unrealistic for most people, but if you do want to become a whole coiner, you can still do it. It is possible. It's not easy anymore, though. If you look here, let's say you want to invest $10,000 a year into Bitcoin, and you don't do anything fancy. You just dollar cost average. Let's say the Bitcoin price goes from 67,000 and it goes up 2.5x over the next year to a peak right around 170 in 2025. Actually, we'll call it the average. We'll call all these the average prices. And then we fall 60% in the next bear market, 2026, to $67,000. Okay? Then we move up 50%, then up 50%, then up 150%, then back down 60%. We just continue on this pattern. This is, I think, pretty, I don't want to say conservative, because for most people, like in traditional finance, they think this is crazy. But if you're in Bitcoin and you think Bitcoin's not going to pass $1 million until 2037, I think a lot of people would say that's maybe about right. Now, or maybe that's a little bit conservative. It also shows like the average is 847 in 2033, so maybe we get up to $1 million. But let's move on. You continue to invest $10,000 a year. Bitcoin's price goes all the way up to almost $10 million 20 years from now, okay? Keep in mind, compounding is kind of crazy over time. People don't realize the power of compounding. After all this time, you're only at 0.81 Bitcoin. You've invested for actually over 20 years. You've invested for 22 years and invested $220,000, and you only have 0.8 Bitcoin. Now, keep in mind, this would be a lot of money at this point. In US dollar terms, this would be 7.8 million. So I don't think you're going to do too bad, even if you're at 0.8 Bitcoin in this scenario. But you're not at 1 Bitcoin, and that's the goal in this scenario. Okay, so how do you get there? Well, you go through the same numbers and you invest $12,500. You're able to get to 1.01 Bitcoin. Okay, so you're able to get there. It is hard, though. I mean, we're talking about $12,500 a year. Again, let's say you're a family that comes away with $100,000 after tax. So maybe $130,000, $140,000 before tax. After tax, you're at $100,000. And then let's say after expenses, you're at $30,000. You almost have to put in 50% of all your investments into Bitcoin then. Okay, that's outside of your 401k, HSA, all those other accounts. So, I mean, we're still talking about six-figure earners still having a pretty difficult time if they want to stay like somewhat diversified here. That's even with the 30% savings rate. So let's continue down the line. And there will be some points here that hopefully can help you. Okay, this is where it gets more interesting. If you can front load when the prices are lower. So instead of investing $12,500 each year for 22 years, which equates to $275,000, you invest more up front. So you invest $40,000 less over this time period, and you actually get just about the same amount of Bitcoin. So the key is you invest more at first, $20,000, then $15,000, then you go down to $10,000. The reason for that is obviously you can buy more now. That's almost always been the case. It's always better to buy Bitcoin sooner rather than later, now rather than 2 or 3 years from now, because it's almost always lower now. Same thing in this scenario. If you bump it up to 25K, you can even cut off the $10,000 buys in 2030. So in this scenario, we're talking about investing $105,000. So less than half of what we invested in the previous round. Okay. And you actually get more Bitcoin over time. Kind of crazy when you are able to front load it. And if you're able to do even more, I know some people out there already have a quarter of a Bitcoin or half a Bitcoin or something. Here you start by investing $35,000 this year. When Bitcoin's price is $67,000, you can stop after just $85,000. I know, still not easy, but you can get to 1.04 Bitcoin. Now, is this the smartest way to do it? Depends on your situation, depends on your risk levels, depends on how much money you're making. But if you do think Bitcoin's going to go up in price a lot, it probably makes sense to invest as much as possible sooner rather than later, right? Again, just going off the numbers. If Bitcoin's going to go up, it obviously makes sense to buy more now. But then also, you can do some other things like take profits, maybe buy some altcoins, take profits during the bull run, or maybe you just want to stay Bitcoin, but maybe take some Bitcoin off the table during the bull run. But of course, then you run the risk too. If you sell at 167 and you sell half your Bitcoin stack, and let's say that we get institutional adoption, nation state adoption, and it never comes back down, you lose, or you run the risk of losing half your stack at 167,000, which maybe it goes up to 1 million, right? It's difficult to know. But is this realistic for most people? No, it's not. The fact is there are only 21 million coins. So just from the math, it's not realistic for most people, or even a tenth of people, to get a full Bitcoin. Okay? This is a tough reality that a lot of people are going to face. There are 55 million millionaires. Okay? And that's probably even low. That's the last number we have. 55 million, maybe 60 million, and 21 million Bitcoin. Every millionaire, if it's spread out evenly, can only afford a third of a Bitcoin. Okay? And a lot of Bitcoin has been lost. Early days, thrown out on different cold storage wallets. The passwords were thrown out, okay? A lot of entities hold more than one Bitcoin, too. Keep in mind, the world's not fair. MicroStrategy holds a lot of Bitcoin. Tether holds a lot of Bitcoin. There are billionaires that hold a lot of Bitcoin, hold 10,000, 50,000 Bitcoin, okay? So realistically, I think maybe there's 2 to 5 million that changes hands. The rest is just going to be locked up or lost, okay? So let's say it's let's be fair, or let's be generous and say it's 4 million Bitcoin. There are 8 billion people in the world, 60 million millionaires. The price is going to go up. And even if you just look at it from a price perspective, like how many people can afford a Bitcoin when it's at $300,000? Keep in mind, even if you have $300,000 to your name, it's still really hard to go and buy a full Bitcoin. Like if you're worth $300,000, you're not going to sell everything get all your cash and then put it in a Coinbase account and then buy a Bitcoin. No, and it wouldn't really make a lot of sense either. That's a lot of risk, even just from like a personal standpoint. If you transfer it wrong, or I don't know, something goes wrong, and then you lose your entire net worth, that would really suck. So if Bitcoin's at, let's say, $250,000, I like changing the numbers, $250,000, how much money do you need to go buy a Bitcoin? Well, most millionaires aren't actually that liquid, right? How do you get to be a millionaire? A couple different ways. You could invest your way there. So you invest over 20, 30 years. You keep on putting, I don't know, a couple $1,000s a month in an account. You become a millionaire. That's not the easiest place, though, to start investing in Bitcoin and buying a lot of Bitcoin if you become a millionaire from investing, because you probably have a lot of capital gains taxes to pay if you start selling some of your assets. You might not want to, I guess, unless they're tax protected. Another way you can do it through real estate. So you become a millionaire from a couple rental properties, maybe your home. Well, you're not selling your home. You're probably not refinancing it and putting it all into Bitcoin. You're probably not selling your rental properties either. They probably cash flow well. There are high transaction fees to get out of it. Maybe you get to be a millionaire through your business. Your business is worth $1 million. Okay, well, let's say it's a trucking business. You're not going out and refinancing your trucks to put into Bitcoin and then just being cash flow negative at the business. Okay, you're probably not going to go sell the business to buy Bitcoin. Now, some people can do different things. I mean, there are new ways, I suppose, and more businesses trying to get debt just to buy Bitcoin. So that's a possibility, I suppose, but not very likely. So you see the point here. Most millionaires get there from investments in some way, a business, through stocks, through real estate, and all of these are pretty hard to offload, okay? So it is really hard, even if you're worth $1 million, to go put 30% or 25% of your entire net worth in an asset. It's difficult. So it's not realistic for most people to become whole coiners, but that's good. That's good because if you're on this journey, you're going to beat a lot of other people. You're going to beat a lot of other people because it's going to be very difficult to do this in the future. Okay? Now, one other thing that's important to be paying attention to is how politicians are approaching Bitcoin, because this does affect who can buy Bitcoin. This affects what people think about Bitcoin. And we're seeing an interesting divide right now. I covered this yesterday, but Biden vetoed a bill overturning SAB 121. Basically, he's overturning a bill that would make it easier for banks to custody crypto. Okay, so it's anti-crypto what he's doing. On the other hand, you have Trump, who becomes the first American president to accept Bitcoin Lightning payments for campaign donations. Now, I don't like getting political, and it sounds crazy. I know some people will be pissed off at me, but I'm just being honest here. A lot of the time, I don't think that you can really change people's opinions on this stuff anyway, so I'm not trying to come out here and tell you which way to think or anything like that, but I'm going to be covering some of the elections and some of the news around the elections because it does influence markets. So that's why I bring it up, is because on one hand, we have a very pro-crypto candidate. On the other, we have someone that has fought against crypto with the SEC for years. And something that I found really interesting, this is actually the All In podcast. I covered it yesterday. I actually showed part of this clip, but there's another clip where they talk about how many voters actually care about crypto. And this is going to be a major point, a discussion point during this next election. So be ready because there's going to be a lot of talk about Bitcoin. Let's play this.
Actually, what do you think, Sachs? How many points is being the pro-crypto candidate worth in this election? 1, 2, 3 points of votes? 4 points? It's got to be something significant.
It's hard to
if young people show up,
but
it could be 500 basis points. I mean, young people do not show up to vote because there isn't an issue that they care about. Correct. But there's 50 million Americans that own crypto. 50. Okay, so if 10% of them are, like, let's say that's their single issue, that's 5 million votes. No. There's a plausible case where 40 million of those folks show up because you're talking about a structural...
This is the really important part. This is something that I hadn't really considered before. So listen in.
Part of their wealth creation, right? So, for example, like, President Biden talked about giving people a head start by eliminating their debt. That's a narrow issue. And the reason it's a narrow issue, there's just as many people that don't have debt and just as many people that paid off their debt. And it creates a lot of haves and have-nots, right? And there's all these rules around who will get the debt relief, et cetera. You end up touching 4 or 5 million people maximum. But if there are 50 million people who have now decided to have at least a hedge against the establishment and the traditional financial system, and you are threatening to take that wealth away, I could see how 80% of those folks show up to the ballot box and say, all right, which one of you will just leave me alone? And if the answer is President Trump, then they're all going to vote for President Trump.
I think this is like such a great issue for political candidates to embrace. And it's just such a simple framework. I've said it a dozen times. Create a sophisticated investor test. Let 1,000 flowers bloom. People can make whatever crypto projects they want. But to buy it, you just have to take a simple test like a driver's license so that you don't risk your entire net worth or whatever. If you do, you're an informed buyer of crypto. Just make a sophisticated investor test and let's move on. Chamath, just since we're in Crypto Corner, before we leave Crypto Corner, when is my ape going to be worth money?
Okay. I actually think Jason makes a good point there. Basically, if you are someone that knows what they're doing, you should be able to invest how you want. It shouldn't be the government trying to protect you at all costs, even though they're not protecting you in other ways. And if you're an institutional investor, or if you're a accredited investor, you can invest in a lot riskier ways. And that has nothing to do with your competence. That has nothing to do with you actually knowing what you're doing. The fact is, that just means that either you make a lot of money or you have a lot of money. You could have gotten that from your parents. You could be at a cushy job and know nothing about finance, right? So the fact is, that doesn't even really protect investors. That just shows, and maybe that was a decent screen a while ago, but the fact is, there are people that should be able to invest how they want, even if they don't make $200,000 a year or have a net worth of $1 million. This is supposed to be the land of the free. So let the people do what they want if they know what they're doing. But I did think this was also really fascinating from Chamath, just talking about the fact that everyone that's investing in crypto wants crypto to go up. It's not like debt forgiveness, because debt forgiveness does get tricky. I've talked about this at various points in my life, having different thoughts, whether I was in debt, whether I was out of debt. And, there are some people that say, screw it, I just paid off my debt. Why do I want everyone else to not have to pay their debts and then put it on my back later because we go into more national debt? I'm not saying that's my view necessarily, but I am saying that's how some people view it. So, yeah, you're going to have some people that are excited about it. You're going to have some people that don't care. You're going to have some people that are pissed off. But everyone that's invested in crypto wants it to go up. The people that aren't invested in crypto probably don't really care that much. Now, maybe they feel a little bit of FOMO. Maybe they'd rather just not have it go up because maybe they have something against crypto. Maybe they invested in crypto and it went down and now they just hate the whole crypto narrative or the whole crypto sector. But it doesn't matter at the end of the day, because in my opinion, we're going to go up. This Bitcoin weekly retest looks bullish. We have a lot of institutions buying. It's only going to get crazier from here. So be ready. Let me know your thoughts on this underneath the video. Again, if you do want to trade crypto, you can trade it over on Margex or CoinW. Links are underneath the video. I appreciate it. I will see you in the next video.